Hey everyone and welcome
Or welcome back
to the Wizarding World Legacy Podcast, where we explore the magic of the Wizarding World's past, present, and future. We're your hosts, Eric
and Jasmine.
And today we're going to be discussing 9 new casting announcements to the Harry Potter franchise being rebooted on HBO-Max.
Oh, because apparently we're HBO-Max again.
Yes, they really need to make up their minds.
I am getting whiplash and I would appreciate it. I'd appreciate it. Yeah. Speaking of which, first character I'd like to get into is the one and only Molly Weasley. Molly is not necessarily Molly, Mrs. Weasley. I have no right to call her that.
You don't?
No. I apologize. That was rude.
I don't either, to be clear. Yeah. This isn't a Jasmine thing.
No, it's an everyone except for maybe Arthur.
Yes.
And it is okay to call him Arthur.
But not her Molly.
Nope.
And he really gets to call her Molly Wobbles.
Exactly. And exclusively that. She is described in the first book really just as Ron's mom. And before we hear her name, we are just told that she's a plump woman. Beyond that, we don't get much of a description. Later in the books, we hear that she's referred to as rather short, kindly looking, has red hair and warm brown eyes. Red hair
and a hand-me-down robe. You must be a Weasley.
Another Weasley.
And she's about 47 years old. It's not actually stated in the first book that she has red hair.
No.
But they were talking about, what's the Punnett squares or whatever, where you talk about genealogy? It might not be Punnett squares.
Just a family tree?
No, one parent has to have, blue eyes.
Oh,
blue
dominant
eyes.
and recessive genes?
Yeah, genes. In order to have, 9 redheads, both parents have.
For sure.
For that to just logically make sense. That's Molly Weasley. She is the mother of 7 children, a family of 9, and I'd say surrogate mother to Harry.
She kind of just imposes that motherly protectiveness because the boys
so.
want to ask him questions about his scar. And she's like,
how don't you
dare?
They don't know that he's Harry when they first, the second they meet him.
And I think she does know it's him.
Oh,
I think the fact that she says, what platform is it again? Oh, it's packed with muggles. Shouting this out in the middle of a train station that you've been in a ton of times.
Right.
You definitely know what platform it is.
And your kids likely
know as well.
Mm-hmm.
I suspect that she was saying this out loud on Dumbledore's orders so that Harry would know where to go.
I mean, did Dumbledore tell Hagrid not to tell Harry that he needed to go through the barrier?
I don't know that he gave Hagrid as explicit instructions as you would think somebody would when there's a child first entering the magical world alone.
When we're talking about a minor.
Yeah, but that's kind of Dumbledore's way, and that's kind of the Wizarding World's way, apparently.
No, you know what?
Yeah.
Fair enough. Is going to be played by Katherine Parkinson.
I'm Katherine Parkinson, and I'm an actress.
She is a British actress.
With no relation to Pansy Parkinson, as far as we're aware.
Yet to be determined.
Yeah.
She is 47 years old, which is exactly how old Mrs. Weasley is meant to be.
You gotta get it together.
Yeah, I know. It's late.
And I'm gonna say right there, they're kind of crushing it on casting people age appropriately, which is one of my biggest gripes about the movie series.
Yeah.
So this is great. It's a great start.
Slay. Mrs. Weasley is described as, rather short.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine is 5'6". So she's pretty average for...
Yeah, I wouldn't consider that short. And in the UK, it's not particularly short.
Right.
I wouldn't consider it short even in the United States.
I think it just depends on who they put her next to. If they were to put her next to McTeer...
She'll look short.
She'll look real short because she's 6'1".
But if she puts her next to the guy playing Hagrid, who is 5'7",
she'll look really tall. Height-wise, we just got to be careful about where we're placing perspectives.
Yeah.
Age-wise, we are golden. She has green eyes, but that can be altered with contacts. She's supposed to have these warm brown eyes.
And green eyes, anyways, if they're not really brilliant green,
right,
they can come off as brown on screen anyways. And then, of course, you can use tinted contacts and all that stuff. So that's not a tough one.
Exactly. And she comes preloaded with red hair.
She does.
Perfect red hair.
As God intended.
She's comes from kind of a comedic sort of background. A lot of her roles were comedic, which I think kind of works well for Molly. She's kind of stern in the books and in the movies, but she's also super loving and nurturing and has all these other qualities that it would be nice to kind of get to explore.
Well, Julie Walters, who played
Molly Weasley.
Mrs. Weasley.
Yeah.
originally also had a little bit of a comedy background.
I think she portrayed a pretty diverse character, but really kind of leaned towards that nurturing mom, like dotes on her children, but then also has to be the one kind of whipping them in line because Arthur was a bit of a
lackadaisical gentleman.
Yeah, he wasn't a lazy dad. He was always working hard. It was just that he was like, he wanted to be fun when he was around the kids because he was always working.
She studied at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Arts, very long title, in 2005. And she really gained fame as Jen in the IT Crowd.
Lots of experience with the whole computer thing, emails. Sending emails, receiving emails.
Which for a while I thought was the It Crowd. I heard that today that it was the IT Crowd, and she did that from like 2006 to 2014. She did win a BAFTA for Best Female Comedy Performance.
The things that I have seen clips of her in, and I did actually watch some of the IT Crowd years ago, she is funny, but there are parts in that show where she had to be a little bit serious, but mostly funny. But if we're going looks-wise, age-wise, and just like having the right type of experience compared to who's portrayed Molly Weasley in the past,
right,
I think this is a good choice.
I think that someone who has a comedy background has the audacity to be ridiculous enough to voice a howler.
The next casting is for not her husband. Unfortunately, we don't know who's going to be Arthur Weasley yet, but we do know who's going to be Lucius Malfoy. And it's not Jason Isaacs. It's also not Tom Felton, which people were kind of pushing that rumor around that he might be coming back. So Lucius Malfoy is first described in the Chamber of Secrets. The man who followed could only be Draco's father. He had the same pale, pointed face and identical cold grey eyes. Mr. Malfoy crossed the shop, looking lazily at the items on display, and rang a bell on the counter before turning to his son and saying, "Touch nothing, Draco."
A king.
Later, he's also described as having long white blonde hair or platinum hair, being tall, being imposing, and he was supposed to be around 41 years of age in the first book.
I will say it's interesting that we have this person cast this early because we don't actually meet, see, or interact with Lucius
In any way.
until the second book, which I think a lot of people are taking as a suggestion that they are going to be able to really work in more of the characters this time around early on and sort of do a little bit more of a clean lead up to their entrances and their important, like storyline moments.
If they're in the first season, they would have to deviate from the books.
You don't have to deviate from the books. Harry might not consciously pick up on the fact that he's seeing Malfoy's father.
Malfoy's father, the only time that we really hear about him is when he meets Malfoy in Diagon Alley, and Malfoy mentions that his mother and father are his mother's wand shopping for him and his father's somewhere else in Diagon Alley. There's no interaction.
Right, there's no interaction, but that doesn't mean that Malfoy couldn't run out of there and then later on Diagon Alley, you could just walk by.
This is the thing that kept getting brought up when I had heard other news about this, is a lot of people had said there are some castings here that are not seen in the first movie. And that must suggest that they're going to be filming parts that we didn't see in the first movie or in the first book, maybe weren't written into the first book, and they're going to sort of expand the storyline. I disagree with that take. I think what they're doing is they're casting these people so that they already have them ready to go for season 2 or for when their first scene arises, and they can start building that dynamic between characters. I think having the person playing his father on set and kind of already interacting with him builds that dynamic that's then going to play into the first time we see him on camera.
So your theory is that we are paying someone thousands of dollars for likely a year to film the first season?
No, so he doesn't have to, the person cast for this role does not have to be present for filming and stuff like that, but they can be doing acting training together for their role for the second season, which you would do anyways. It's just a timing of when you would do that. I think it's really to more establish that dynamic between the two characters that are going to have such a personal interplay. Jason Isaacs and Tom Felton spent a ton of time offset learning how to portray father and son, but kind of like a very dysfunctional father and son. And it's funny because it ended up working out to be almost like a second father and son relationship for Tom Felton. They're still very close to this day.
That's so sweet.
I think casting them this early doesn't necessarily suggest that he's going to have scenes that he didn't have in the book. I think it suggests that they want to secure these people now so that they're not scrambling for people. And it'll make more sense when we talk about appearances in a second. But yeah, that's the first time we hear about him in the books. The first time we see him in the movies is in the second movie. The person who's cast for him is another age-appropriate person.
Big takeaways from Lucius Malfoy's description in the book. Blonde, white, platinum hair.
Yep.
He's supposed to be 41 in the first book, even though we don't see him. He's tall and imposing. So those are like the book descriptors that we're looking for. The person who he's been cast as is Joe or Johnny Flynn.
So he's another British actor and musician. He's 42 years old, which does work more or less. I mean, he's very, very close to the person he's going to be playing. He's a little bit older than the first time we'd see him on screen, but age-wise, it's still quite appropriate.
We're talking 10-year discrepancies last time around with the movies. I'm okay with 1 or 2 years.
Johnny Flynn is pale enough.
You keep him in a dark room long enough, he could for sure be pale enough.
Or literally just, makeup.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually more interested in boxing him in.
Yeah, I'm more interested in just no melanin production whatsoever. Low vitamin D levels. Just like, seasonal affective disorder.
Psychological torture.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now that's how you get a character.
That's right. So he is the right age. He is pale. He does have blonde hair, albeit dirty blonde hair. Jason Isaac had a wig because he had basically brown-ish hair and short hair. He's not very tall. No. He's average height. He's 5'10", which is average height for a male. Still could be imposing. I mean, you don't have to be 6'4" to be imposing.
I think that's a fair point.
And he's mostly going to be
6'4", and in the right circumstances, can be imposing.
He's going to be often seen next to kids. He's going to be seen next to Draco. He's going to be seen next to Dobby at times, who's very small, obviously.
Likely going to be short.
He'll be seen next to his wife at points, other Death Eaters who, their heights might not be explained. So I don't think the fact that he's 5'10" is going to be a barrier, but he's not somebody you'd say is like tall and imposing.
No, and I like the idea that Dumbledore will be taller than him, because Dumbledore's 6'1", I think, John Lithgow. So when he's next to Dumbledore, who's one person who absolutely should be more imposing than he is, he will. Yeah. I think it'll work out.
You could just wear boots. He actually is the brother of another actor. So he's got plenty of his own acting credits, which we'll get into. But he's the brother of another actor from a fantasy series.
Jerome Flynn.
Who played Bronn in Game of Thrones. Good series. Well, until the end. Yeah. His professional career includes studying at the Webber Douglas Academy of the Dramatic Arts. He also rose to fame as an actor playing Dolph Vega in The Crusade in Jeans in 2006. I never saw that.
Me either, but I think it's funny.
Since then, he's worked on the stage, which seems to be a very, very common theme amongst British actors.
Especially with this grouping.
Yeah. But even if you go back to the
OGs,
most of them did stage acting. Gary Oldman, Daniel Radcliffe, John Lithgow did for this one. But Alan Rickman, I already said Alan Rickman, didn't I? Anyways, most of them did Royal Academy of Acting and all those kind of things. Stage acting, I think, helps to build confidence and bravado and this presence for roles like this. Fantasy roles kind of require a little bit more like gravitas and
like the comfort level of pushing the envelope further than you would actually push it.
If you were trying to act kind of like normal.
Right. If you were trying to act a little bit more
true to life. So he acted in stage and on film and on television shows, and he was the main character. He was the main character in a movie called Scrotal Recall.
It's a television series.
Well, it was a television series. Yeah. And that was later renamed Lovesick.
What was it called?
Scrotal Recall. Yeah, later renamed Lovesick.
I looked into it. Apparently, Scrotal Recall didn't send the message that they had originally wanted it to send. So it didn't match the vibe. So we transitioned to Lovesick.
And that name didn't get me lovesick, just sick. Just sick. He was the main character in that television series. He also played Dickie Greenleaf in the 2024 Netflix series Ripley, opposite of Andrew Scott, who's a pretty big British actor who's also done a lot of stage.
Very much so. Big fan of Andrew Scott.
In fact, he did stage work with Luke Thallin, who's playing Cornelius Squirrel. I wonder if he'll end up in the series. That'd be interesting.
Andrew Scott, I think he's too well known.
Yeah, he might be.
And he I love Andrew Scott, and he plays like very specific characters.
He's a good villain.
He could be Voldemort, but I think he might be too well known.
I think he'd be too well known for Voldemort.
I know.
But but he's a good villain.
He's going to be starring in an upcoming historical fiction survival thriller. I didn't know so many types could go into one thing.
Yeah. So historical fiction / survival thriller, A Prayer for the Dying. He's going to have to balance out some interesting characteristics for Lucius Malfoy. Those would include, the sort of pure blood fanatic, wants to just wipe all these disgusting mudbloods out of Hogwarts, with the sort of cowardice that we see mid-series.
I think with the longer series, we have an opportunity to see some pretty well-developed character arcs. I'm excited to see the slow decline.
Of
I feel
Lucius.
Like we don't really get to see him after he's removed from the board at Hogwarts. And, Draco takes a step back because he doesn't have the ability to be as pompous. And so we don't get to see as much of that in the films.
Yeah, I just can't wait to see him kind of this sounds so mean, but see his character kind of beaten down.
Yes.
On both sides, right?
Right.
He thinks he has all this power as the sort of one of the school governors, and he uses that against Dumbledore in the beginning. We always hear Draco saying, my father will hear about this, and his father does hear about this and does things about this. And then he's sort of beaten back from that side. And then he's beaten back from the Voldemort side because of his failings in getting the prophecy and all sorts of other sort of little failings. He kind of just becomes a little meek by the end of the series. I think that Jason Isaac did a good job portraying this, but there wasn't enough development. It's kind of like he went from this strong, important character to this meek character. And you're like, wait.
My lord?
My lord? And you don't get in the books you do, but in the movies you don't get the explanation of how did we get here.
What happened to you?
Yeah.
Just looks like he got strung out or really let himself go.
So that'll be cool to see them kind of be able to have their time to let that character arc develop. And it'll be interesting to see how he plays this. Because I think if given the time, Jason Isaac would have done a fantastic job.
Very much agree.
He just didn't have the time because it was a movie. Do you think they'll flesh all that out in the series?
I think so. I guess I have this hope with all of the characters. I would like to see a little bit more of that character development, and I'd like to see more interaction between Mr. and Mrs.
Narcissa and Lucius. It's funny because a lot of people seem to really, really be invested in the Malfoy family when it comes to the fandom.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The number of fan movies.
Fan movies, fanfics, in terms of books and stuff. And a lot of that comes from the Hermione kind of relationship that people wanted. But even beyond that, some of those books, while they might be based on Draco and Hermione kind of ending up together, there is a lot of great development of the Malfoy family.
Right. And honestly, now that you say that, that's probably why I want to see more interaction between Narcissa and Lucius, is because I can now picture them and I have a more developed sense of them sort of in my own world, which is lovely. Don't visit. I do think that there's just a lot of rich character to work with there.
And I think one of the benefits about having J.K. Rowling involved in the project is that even the smallest character, like Tom the barman, right, has an entire life outside of what we've seen on the page, either written down somewhere or sort of in her head. She literally has fully fleshed out lives for all these people. And while I don't want to deviate from the main book, I think there are ways to incorporate more of the character in the show without doing so, without pulling from canon.
Maybe we could have the same Tom all the way through. And he
doesn't
suffer a massive back injury.
In alopecia. Lost all of his hair and forgot how to laugh like a normal human. Yeah. I think it'll be great to see him fleshed out a little bit more.
We cannot say fleshed out one more time.
Not about Tom the barman, that's for sure. But we'll see. We'll see what they do with him. It's not as important to the storyline, so they might not.
That's true.
I think it's a good casting choice. I think he'll do a good job. And again, we're staying with the age-appropriate appearance. Next character,
we have Petunia Dursley. And everyone bear with me. Today, I did in fact realize that Petunia and Lily's parents, I don't know why it clicked for me today, but they wanted to name their daughters after flowers because we have petunias and lilies. Mind was blown. I think petunias is a terrible name, and I know that's for sure intentional with the character. But anyway, big light bulb moment for me.
kills me that she just realized that.
I'm happy that I finally got to be here today. We meet Mrs. Dursley on the very first page of the very first book. She is described as...
Mrs. Dursley was thin and blonde and had nearly twice the usual amount of neck, which came in very useful as she spent much of her time craning over garden fences and spying on the neighbours.
Basically, what we know about her is that she is... It doesn't say she's tall. I always pictured her as tall. But she does have a long neck. She is blonde, which she was not in the films. And she is thin. She's also described as having a little bit of a horsey face.
I always think back to the wonderful actress who played Dolores Umbridge and the Toad appearance. Being told you're a good fit for this role hurts a little bit.
Oh my gosh. And there's a clip of her saying that. She's like, oh, it's not so flattering to be told that you look like a toad.
But she pulled it off well.
Yes, she did pull it off well.
Yeah.
I hate the character so much that it makes it hard to like her, but that means she did a good job. Petunia is meant to be 22-ish the very first time we meet her, which is just that first chapter before Harry is deposited onto the doorstep. And then for the rest of the entirety of the series, she is 32 going on 42.
And I do want to see, obviously, those flashback scenes. We've talked about this before. I do think starting where the book starts is important.
Yes.
Because there's some setup to, the people that Harry grows up with that I think is very, very important. Just with hair and makeup and stuff like that, you could certainly make the person that they cast for this role look young enough.
Yeah.
They used to use 30-year-olds and stuff in high school.
Right.
Kid roles back in the day, which was a bit of a stretch. But I think you could sell her as looking 20-something. It's making her look different enough once she's now in her 30s, which some people don't look drastically different 20s to 30s. So
the person cast in this role is Isabel or Bel Dorothy Powley Booth. Short is just Bel Powley.
I think she's trying to compete with Albus,
Percival,
Wulfric,
Brian,
Dumbledore. For as many names as you can possibly have.
I think that was probably the first thing on her resume for this role.
Yeah, like I've got all these names. I'm a fit.
Fit.
If Dumbledore has all these names and I have all these names, it works.
No, it works. So that they were speaking each other's language.
The other thing that makes her a fit is she's British and she's the right age.
Yeah, so she is 33 right now. So they're going to have to de-age her a little bit.
Yeah, for the first scenes. So she's 33 years old. She's got to be de-aged in one way or another. You can do that digitally. I've already voiced my concerns with doing that.
Right.
It's easier to age than de-age digitally, but you can do it with makeup.
Age, I'm not worried about. This actress is 5'2", though.
Which is pretty short for somebody who's craning over garden fences.
Right. I don't know if she's standing on a ladder or a step stool, but, I was looking through the book. It doesn't necessarily say that she's particularly tall, I don't think.
It doesn't. To be fair, garden fences in the UK may be very different heights. I've been to the UK quite a few times, and a fence is probably a 4-foot fence. In the United States, we have a lot of fences that are 6 and 8 feet tall. That's pretty standard as a privacy fence.
Nobody's seeing it.
Nah, but it's actually pretty common in the UK where your garden fence is really just like a 4-foot fence. And you would see over that just fine. More common is stone walls and hedges.
Right.
And hedges can be very, very, very tall, or they can be short and well manicured. So I don't think that's going to be a big deal that she's that short. But when you get this long neck cranes over garden fences, you do tend to think of her being a bit taller.
And so we do get that specific long neck descriptor in the books. I've looked at the actress. I don't think her neck is particularly scarily long.
I don't think it's just particularly long.
Yeah, it's
just
pretty
normal,
average.
Normal neck.
I did look into it. The internet doesn't offer neck lengths.
Neck measurements for her.
Neck measurements.
Which your browser history is going to look so weird.
Absolutely.
Looking up little children's ages and where they live and how to pronounce their names.
Come on. Neck length is going to depend a lot on what she's wearing, and she'll
just have to elongate her posture. Outside of that, she doesn't have a horsey face. Not at all. The photo that they used for the casting announcement, she looks gorgeous. She's got these brilliant, beautiful eyes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, super bright, ice blue almost in the photo. And she's got pretty dark hair. So if she's going to go blonde like she is in the books, that's going to obviously have to be changed.
I was going to say, that's got to be a wig. You try and bleach that for 10 years.
Well, then you get the eyebrows too, right? And it's hard to go blonde with brows without bleaching them and having them look like you don't have anything on your face.
True.
So you just have to kind of like tint them lighter, I guess.
Right. They can definitely be tinted. At the same time, Fiona Shaw, who played Petunia in the film series, was brunette in real life and was kept brunette for the series. I'm just curious if they'll sort of go with book accuracy here or if they'll just let this particular detail slide.
I think Fiona Shaw had other physical characteristics that just really perfectly embodied Petunia, though.
Very much so.
She was older than she should have been, but she had the long neck.
Very
skinny, tall.
I feel like she was like bony.
Feels mean to say she was horse-faced, but she had that kind of structure to her where you're like, yeah, it works.
And
I can see somebody.
I was looking into it. A person who's described as horse-faced, oftentimes their face is just longer. That's giving like the face of a horse.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be ugly. It's not an ugly feature necessarily.
Right.
But she definitely fit those characteristics, and I think other than age and hair color, she embodied Petunia very, very well. How about her professional career?
So she actually started acting at age 16. She was quite young. She starred in MI High from like 2008 to 2009. She has done like comedy, drama, but she's also done horror. I think that she's got some range in there for sure. And I think that when you're being someone as preposterous as Petunia, a little comedy background is always helpful.
I think the horror background is interesting too, especially when it comes to the time where the Dursleys have to leave Privet Drive and Harry's leaving. That could play in depending on how they want to play those scenes. You're having to leave your home because your life is at risk. And when Hagrid comes to the hut on the rock. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, that could be played up way scarier too.
And like that one is supposed to be an overnight. I'm excited for that. When I was looking into her, I realized, oh my gosh, I know her. And it's from The Morning Show with Reese Witherspoon. Reese
Witherspoon.
Reese Witherspoon and Jennifer Aniston.
Yeah, which I haven't seen that show. I've heard great things.
I was going to say, I've watched a decent amount of it. It's really good.
I've heard great things about it too.
And she's also been in Masters of the Air. Those are more of her recent works. Overall, I don't think she's the most perfectly cast person, but I think that she's pretty good.
And again, age appropriate. There's a lot you can do with hair and makeup. There's a lot you can do with blocking for your actors to make somebody look the right height, or it's not a character feature that I think is going to really affect our perceptions of Petunia as long as she portrays her personality well, which I think she will. Next casting that we have is for Vernon Dursley. Or as the memes are calling him, Daddy Dursley.
Daddy Dursley.
We'll get back into that in just a second.
Oh.
Let's start with the description we get for Daddy Dursley, for Mr. Dursley.
No, Daddy Dursley from here on out.
It's terrible. We first meet him on the first page of the very first book as well. And he's described as, he was a big, beefy man with hardly any neck, although he did have a very large mustache. So he's supposed to be about 37 years old when we first see him in the books. And that would be, again, prior to Harry being delivered to the Dursleys on Privet Drive. But he would then age up by 10 years, and that's kind of when we're going to meet the actor portraying him. Hopeful that they go back the 10 years. I do think for men, going from an age of like early 30s to early 40s, there is usually a bigger visible difference in how they look. Skin texture tends to change in that time. People go through, if they're going to have male pattern baldness or those kind of things, they may go through that later. So that'll be something that I think they could use to make him look like he's aged a little bit more. And I think that would be helpful because the guy who's cast as Vernon doesn't look like he's not in shape. Like, he looks like he would be more in shape than Vernon is described as. And maybe he was in better shape when
we first meet him when he's in his 20s.
Yeah, maybe then he's like in better shape, but this guy's in way too good a shape. We'll get into that.
This guy.
So this guy is Daniel Rigby. He's 42 years old. He's an English actor and comedian.
He looks good for 42.
He's a handsome dude. It's kind of weird that Vernon and Petunia are as attractive people as they are. Because, I don't know, I feel like being more attractive on screen kind of makes people a little bit like, all right, I could forgive a little bit more of your personality flaws.
Absolutely. Pretty people get away with everything.
They do. It's annoying. And
and it is kind of brutal because in a lot of what I've seen, people will flash back to our OG, Mr. and Mrs. Dursley.
Yeah.
And they're like, what are you saying about them? I'm not saying anything about them. Just
they're portrayed accurately. That's what I'm saying about them. Like, I think they're portrayed how they were written in the books, except for age. They are too old compared to how their actors are supposed to be. He's 6'1", so he's definitely going to tower over the actress playing Petunia.
We're talking about a foot difference.
Again, blocking, having her in heels, those kind of things can bridge the gap a little bit, and his posture might bridge the gap a little bit if he slumps a bit. It's a big difference. Basically a foot. She's not in shoes and he is. It's a foot difference.
It's not a problem for the story at all. I just think it might be a little fun, which I think they're supposed to be at least a little bit comical. I'm wondering if there's going to be like first two movies everyone says are lighthearted and almost Christmas movies, and then it's just like
takes a shift. Yeah, there's a dark shift.
Dramatic shift.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if the series will follow that or if it'll take one vibe.
The movies took a very intentional, like aesthetic and kind of emotional shift each movie. They even went with different directors for that reason. The books, I feel like you didn't feel the shift quite as early. You sort of started to feel it with like, there was almost a horror element to the third book.
Yeah.
With, Sirius getting out of prison and you think he's a murderer and you think he might be coming for Harry. It was just like really overdone aesthetically in the movies.
Yeah. It was pretty drastic, especially between 2 and 3.
So given the ages, I think sort of a gentler transition would kind of feel more natural.
But Daniel he's not like a skinny person.
He's broader built. Although he's fit, like he's in shape.
He's wicked fit, but he's a broader build, so I think that'll make it easier to make him look like.
It could. And, the boy who played Dudley Dursley actually lost a lot of weight at the end of the series. If you've seen The Queen's Gambit or any other movie that he's been in, he's very, very skinny now. And he was actually getting very thin by the end of the series. So one of the reasons why the scene where Harry is kind of at the home with them while they're leaving Privet Drive.
They're packing the car. And
he says, I don't think you're a waste of space. Oh. Thanks, Big D. He was in a fat suit for that scene. One of the reasons they cut it is because they thought it looked horrible. Like they didn't think it looked good. And honestly, I don't know, maybe it's because I was a young adult the first time I saw that. It looked fine.
That bad.
Yeah, no, it looks fine. Technology's come a long way. Prosthetics and everything else have come a long way, although they were already good back then. I think they could just do that with costume design and stuff like that and make him look like a bigger, beefier man. I don't want him to have to put on like a ton of weight like Brendan Fraser did for his film The Whale, because that is like harmful to your health. Actors and actresses already put themselves through the ringer for certain roles. Like Christian Bale, he had a bunch of roles where he like crazy thin, then very Coke overweight. Thin. Yeah, like Coke thin, then very overweight, then like super buff and in shape. That's just horrible on your body.
Right.
So it'd be nice if he just didn't eat quite as health consciously and then just like most of it was done with costume design.
Yeah.
That would be good. But like for him to just try to pack it on for this series, I hope they don't make him do that.
A 10-year series? That's kind of a long time.
It's a long time to just like put on as much weight as you can for a job. I don't know. I don't want them to make him do that. So let him stay healthy. Let him still go to the gym if he wants to go to gym. And funny enough, Vernon was a boxer. Right. So like, particularly for the younger scene, like if he was in shape like a boxer, and some boxers are a little bit bigger built. They have heavyweights, right? That could actually play to that, but they'll have to do some stuff to make him look like he's aged a bit more and to make him look like he's a little bit more out of shape.
Definitely.
Anyways, I spent way too much time talking about that.
We spent way too much time talking about everything. And that's kind of the point of this.
Yeah.
So
he won the British Academy Television Award for Best Actor in his performance as the late comedian Eric Morecambe. And he beat out Matt Smith, who plays Damon in House of the Dragons. But he beat him out in his role as the Doctor in Doctor Who. And then he beat out Benedict Cumberbatch in Sherlock Holmes, which... Sherlock Holmes, did you watch the Benedict Cumberbatch one?
Absolutely, I did.
Very good. Very, very well done.
Of course I watched.
Yeah. The guy who plays Dr. John Watson in that. He's also in The Hobbit. He's a ton of things. Would be a good Arthur Weasley.
I don't know. I think of him as short because he plays a hobbit in The Hobbit.
I mean, he's short. He's short for a male, but Arthur isn't described as particularly tall, I don't think.
I need him to be taller than Molly, though.
Well, I think he is. I think he's probably like 5'7", 5'8".
Fair enough.
He's a shorter man. I guess if he has tall sons, Ron is tall, and I think Charlie, he's got to be kind of tall. But he would be good. So Sherlock's counterpart would be a good Arthur, aesthetically speaking.
I was going to say, Benedict Cumberbatch would not be. I love him.
No.
He's not an Arthur, though.
No, he could be a good Voldemort, though.
He could be. He's not one that's been really thrown around.
No, but he could be. In 2024, he also appeared as Jack Trotta in the Disney Plus show Renegade Nell. He could definitely lean into the sort of absurdity of Vernon Dursley while still being a bit menacing because he's a big guy, like tall and broad built. I love to see him with a giant walrus mustache would look kind of funny, which would help with the absurdity.
Giant, maybe a little bit curled.
At the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, for
not
sure.
wax curled, just like...
Like it just seems to have this natural floof to it that curls it.
Exactly. Natural floof is what I'm looking for. I wonder if they might like just suggest or lean into the theory that Harry is a Horcrux and that's what makes them so miserable.
So that would be pretty cool, but I do think that's one of the ones that J.K. Rowling has essentially said, no, that's not what happened. They're just bad people. It would be fun to lead into that, but it kind of gives them an excuse to be bad people too.
Next, we're going to be talking about Cornelius Fudge. We don't formally meet him until the second book, though. So he's another one. He's another
one that people think that they might just write parts in for him to be in this book. Again, I disagree. I think it's partially that like they wanted to secure who they wanted. And so they cast him. They announced it because he's going to be part of the series. I do think because the age specific component of this show, like they want to keep the actors the right age, I do think they're going to be filming things in close proximity. Like the next season will be started right away if in fact they don't film some stuff like kind of at the same time.
Okay.
So I don't think that it's that they're going to write extra stuff for it, but they could. I could be completely wrong.
Unless we're just casually seeing him walk around in Diagon Alley, I'm not thinking of like a casual way we could...
I think the only casual way we could see him is there is that part where Hagrid is reading the newspaper.
Oh, yes.
And there's a mention of Cornelius Fudge. Either Hagrid's reading it or Harry's reading it. And he goes, wait, there's a Minister for Magic? Of course there is. And then he starts explaining there could be a picture of him. And so you would need the person who's going to play him. So that's a way that you could squeeze him in where it literally doesn't detract from canon at all. But I don't think he'll have like an active role in the first film.
In the first
Yes. Oh my God, I keep saying that.
season. How is he described?
So we meet him in the second book, and he is described as follows. It was Dumbledore. He entered looking deadly serious, and was followed by a second, very odd-looking man. The stranger had rumpled grey hair and an anxious expression, and was wearing a strange mixture of clothes, a pinstripe suit, a scarlet tie, a long black cloak, and pointed purple boots. Under his arm he carried a lime green bowler hat. That's Dad's boss, Ron breathed. Cornelius Fudge, the Minister for Magic. He's also described as a portly little man. A lot of people pointed out the clothes because the way he was portrayed in the movies was like very much how you would think a minister of whatever would dress. Like just he had
Professional English businessman.
Yeah, he had like I think it was pinstripe. I'm pretty sure his suit was pinstriped, but it was like black pinstripes. Like he had the satin mixed with like the matte black pinstripe.
Yeah, they were subtle.
And it was a black bowler hat.
He's supposed to look absurd. I want a black with white pinstripe suit, lime green bowler hat, bright red tie, and purple boots.
The absurdity of how they dress is like kind of innate to the Wizarding world. I mean, like when we have the scenes that we want to see, the flashback scenes of Vernon, driving to work and all these wizards in all these brilliantly colored cloaks and things like that. That is the absurdity of the Wizarding world that to them is just totally normal.
Right, and I mean Dumbledore walking onto Privet Drive for the first time is the direct contrast between the Muggle and the Wizarding world.
Yeah, and he's in a purple cloak. I'd love to see that too. I think the lime green bowler hat and all this other stuff
It's also not hard.
It's not. I want it to be visually offensive.
Yes.
Like it's got to clash. It's going to be terrible, but in the best way.
Right. I need to see the difference between a Muggle and a magical minister.
But instantly. That was good.
Thank you.
It's gonna clip. So the person cast to play the Minister for Magic is Bertie Carvel.
Carvel, ice cream.
That is an ice cream. It sounds like such an innately British name, but that's an American ice cream company.
Mm-hmm. Ice cream cake. He sounds delicious.
Carvel out a piece of ice cream cake.
Mr. Carvel is a British film and theater actor. He's 47. Do we know how old Cornelius is meant to be?
Well, he's supposed to have gray hair, so you'd think he's a little bit older. And this guy's pretty close to Vernon's age. I know he's supposed to be older. I don't want to say significantly, but he's definitely older than Vernon. He would have already been working in the ministry around the time that Minerva was, but I don't know how much older than Minerva he would have been.
We're going to do some math and get back to you on this.
But in any case, I do think the casting for this role is probably a little bit younger. However, Bertie Carvel actually very much can look older than his stated age. Mm-hmm. And he has in other roles. So I think he'll look the part just fine. Also, I don't think how old he looks is going to be all that critical to the storyline at all. Really, it's his behavior that makes the Minister of Magic who he is, or who he isn't, quite frankly, which is a competent minister. The gentleman who's portraying him did not study at Briars or at
Haagen-Dazs
University. He studied at the Royal Academy of the Dramatic Arts. And he actually rose to prominence with his critically acclaimed performance as
Miss Trunchbull
in Matilda, which is interesting.
I did fact check it.
And in Ink, which is where he played Rupert Murdoch. That was his character. Yep. And then earning both the Olivier, which some of our other characters have also earned, and the Tony Award. So he's pretty well respected in the acting community. He's also done some TV roles.
He has been Jonathan Strange in Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, Simon Foster in Dr. Foster, and Tony Blair in The Crown.
So he has worked with another one of our cast members before.
Senor Lithgow.
It's funny because he's worked with Dumbledore.
Slay.
And he's going to work with Dumbledore in this movie. And I can't remember what the dynamic was between the two of them in the show, whether or not they had any real tension in The Crown. It's been a few years since I've seen that show. But I think the two of them will be able to pull off the tension between the Minister and Dumbledore just fine. Both of them are great, well-seasoned actors, especially Lithgow. He's
particularly.
Yes. But I think they'll do a great job, thinking of that scene. He's not back. I think they'll do just fine. Physical characteristics-wise, do you have any gripes or any thoughts? Or
He just has to have the ability to look anxious. Portly little man. I mean, he's 6 foot, but Lithgow is 6'4", I think.
6'4" or 6'1". He's over 6. No,
he's over 6 feet.
I think he is 6'4". I think you're right. He's pretty tall, blocking all that kind of stuff. Right. Nothing. It's his behavior that's going to make him look small and insignificant next to Dumbledore. And I do think this guy is going to be able to do a good job. Again, some of his roles, he's done a very, very good job playing very firm and stern characters. He's done a good job playing sort of funny characters as well. And I think you need a little bit of funny.
Oh my gosh,
for Fudge. Yeah. Because he's supposed to be unwittingly incompetent. And that's a little bit funny, as long as you're not subjected to his incompetence directly.
Right, exactly. Like, I imagine him explaining to Harry why Harry is suddenly not in trouble for blowing up his aunt.
Yeah.
But was in trouble for using magic to drop a pudding
on a dinner guest who could be easily obliviated. Come on.
You got to be a little bit stumbly and bumbly to pull that off.
She's been properly punctured and her memory modified. No harm done. Exactly. Water under the bridge.
We need someone a little bit funny to pull off that alliteration.
I do think that the original casting was pretty good.
I agree.
I just think that his wardrobe was lacking.
I need that lime green bowler hat.
So I don't really have any other thoughts on him. I think he'll do fine.
Yeah, I would say that for the most part of the adults that we've talked about thus far, everyone is definitely capable and well suited for the role. Mm-hmm. I'm particularly excited about Molly Weasley, Katherine Parkinson, and I think I'm just excited to see what everyone else decides to bring to the table and how they portray it, and most importantly, how they dress the Minister.
I'm excited for the gentleman playing Lucius, especially because of our next casting. So our next casting is the young Mr. Locks Pratt, and boy is he ever.
Boy is he.
Yeah.
No, we don't know him personally.
No, but his photo for the casting announcement.
I don't know if someone ticked him off before it was taken.
I don't know if this photo was taken for the casting announcement, but it looks like it because he looks like a little Malfoy. It's kind of perfect.
And in case we didn't actually mention it a while back, he's playing Draco.
Draco Malfoy.
So this is little Draco Malfoy. Visual appearance-wise, he actually shares a lot of visual similarity to the gentleman who's being cast as his father. So I think this is great. They're both blonde, although sort of dirty blonde. And he just has this pompous look to him.
He's got the audacity.
He does. And not in a bad way. Like I'm sure he's a sweet kid. But he's got this air of like, I'm better than you, Potter.
Superiority.
Yeah, so he's got that. He's a 10-year-old actor from Britain. He's pretty new to acting, although he, unlike the other child stars, does actually have one role under his belt.
The Lord of the Flies.
So he was in a single episode, but he was in an episode of Lord of the Flies.
Accomplished for 10.
He's going to be portraying the character who evolves into the school bully and has a pretty conflicted teenage experience. I have to do this. Draco's character arc, I think, is one of the best in the books, because you really kind of see the moral turmoil going on within this little kid. So that'll be interesting to see this young boy portray and see his acting capabilities grow, because inevitably they're going to have to in order to get that dynamic evolution of the character
arc.
But he looks the part, for sure.
Yeah, he looks the part.
Super looks the part.
Bit of experience. I'm excited.
His experience taking that photo is just like...
I hope someone ticked him off. Also, if he's like, just like a little bit pompous.
It'll be perfect.
Next, we have, you have to say it.
Seamus Finnigan.
He is going to be played by Leo Earley.
Leo Earley. He's never late, he's early.
And he is actually Irish.
He's actually Irish. He's a wee 7-year-old boy from Ireland.
And he can speak.
He can speak Irish Gaelic. And he actually is kind of known for that because he gave a performance in Fleet in 2024 at a festival.
2024?
Where he spoke an Irish Gaelic to the crowd. And he also is said to be a capable singer.
And he is just cute as a button.
He's a freaking adorable kid. It would be kind of interesting to see him sing, just like I said about the girl who played Hermione.
If the kid can sing, Eric wants to hear him sing.
I do. Like, use these talents that these kids have. But on the Late Toy Show, which... I have no idea what that is. I've never watched that. Another British or UK television show. He's featured singing on that show and apparently did quite a good job. He's 7.
Yeah.
My youngest...
young.
Yeah, my youngest kid is 8. I only have 2.
Of the 9.
Yeah, and I couldn't imagine him being ready to be in a huge film franchise like this or TV franchise like this.
I can't.
My 11-year-old daughter, who would be going to Ilvermorny at this point. I couldn't imagine that.
She's currently actually waiting for her letter.
To Ilvermorny.
She's going to be devastated.
I'm not a good parent sometimes.
It's fine.
I couldn't imagine her going to such a huge television franchise or to Hogwarts at this age. Like 7 years old? It's crazy. He wouldn't be. He'd be 11.
Right.
He wouldn't actually get into there at that age, but...
So how does this work? Do the parents just drop the kid off? Do the parents hang out on set all day?
If you don't know the answer to that question, you should read Beyond the Wand.
I shan't.
With Tom Felton.
Feel free to fill me in.
You can actually have a chaperone, like a adult chaperone that is provided for your child through the acting agency. Or you can be the adult chaperone. And there is, you can collect a fee for that.
Who collects the fee?
The parent. So they can be paid a fee to be a chaperone on set.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of a paid role. And Tom...
that would be such a flex.
Tom Felton had like an older brother who got to just sit on set and be his chaperone at times.
Oh, that would be so fun.
And would sometimes get him into trouble. Yeah.
Obviously, that's his job.
Their job is really supposed to be like, make sure he stays out of trouble, make sure he actually attends his classes, make sure he's actually eating and, like hydrating between takes and those kind of things.
That's fair.
His brother didn't. He made sure he went out back and like had cigarettes and like went fishing with him and stuff like that.
Buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, the parent could be a chaperone, a sibling could be a chaperone as long as they're old enough. And it's like a paid gig. It's kind of cool.
I'm assuming at some point the kid doesn't need a chaperone. I'm assuming like once they're like 15.
I don't know what the age is for that. You have to sign over some sort of like guardian type rights to, if that's what you're going to do and you're not going to have somebody older on set, there's some sort of rights that you have to sign to the agent or whoever's going to be on set. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But he's wicked young. 7 is super young and not age appropriate actually, but... Maybe it's just because they wanted like a young Irish boy. He had applied for the role and he just did such a good job that they're like, he's a perfect Seamus Finnigan.
He's perfect.
So I'm excited for it. I don't really know anything about this kid. It's hard to because he's, again, 7 and has like just very limited media exposure at all, as most of these kids do. But he looks perfect.
Right, exactly. And I can totally picture him blowing things up.
Parvati Patil has also been cast, and that is by Alessia Leoni. And Alessia Leoni is an Italian name.
She is an Italian actress.
There you go. So yeah, Alessia Leoni, she's playing Parvati Patil, Italian actress. She does have, like the thick dark hair, which is common amongst Italians as well as Indian individuals. And she does have the sort of full sort of pouty lips that you tend to see in Indian, genetics. So she looks the part. The one thing that I think has come up a bunch in people who are sort of talking about this casting is that, as far as we know, she's not a twin.
No.
Parvati Patil is a twin. There's Parvati and
Padme.
Padma Patil.
Not Padme. Padma.
Yeah, Padma Patil.
Apologies.
And the thing that the movies got wrong was that they were not identical twins, and they're supposed to be.
Yep.
And they're not in the same house.
They are not both Gryffindors.
No, one's Gryffindor, one is Ravenclaw. So it would be nice to see that there is a twin, and perhaps she's just going to be a double. Like, she'll play both
I was
roles.
going to say, are we going to parent trap this? Or
And that's going to be a little tough, though, because of, like, the amount of time they're allowed legally to spend on set. I think that's going to make it a challenge for her to be able to actually do both parts. There are also times where the two interact with one another.
I mean, Lindsay Lohan interacted with herself quite a bit.
She did. I just think, like, it adds another layer of complexity on set for, like, very, very young kids.
Exactly.
It's tough. It's not a movie, right? It's a TV show, so you're going to be doing this for longer.
And when you're wrangling so many kids,
Yeah, it's
I
going to be
think
tough.
that can be more challenging for sure. Overall, I definitely think she looks the part. She, I don't know, appears capable.
Yeah, she doesn't have any acting credits, so
She
it'll be
does
interesting.
have these gorgeous, huge brown eyes,
Yes.
which, I don't know, it's not relevant, but I'm obsessed.
No, I mean, if you looked at her and someone said, "Oh yeah, she's Indian," you could definitely believe it. But she's Italian,
Yeah.
so a little bit of an ethnic deviation. I would have preferred that they stuck with somebody who was Indian. You certainly want to represent everybody as they're supposed to be in the series. But I do think she'll do a good job, and I'm not gonna crap on any of the kid actors. I just don't think that's cool.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure a hard and fast rule here.
Yeah, beautiful young girl. She's going to do a good job, and I think it'll be interesting to see her develop as a character. I mean, she's going to be at the Yule Ball with one of the main characters. And I would love to see, one of the things I'd really like to see is, like, there's all these side moments as they start to get into, like, divination and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah, her and Lavender.
Her and Lavender in divination, and none of that's there in the movies.
No.
I think I'd like to see that.
And speaking of Lavender,
Speaking of Lavender, she is another one of our castings.
she's our final casting.
She is.
This brings us to 9.
And that's Sienna Moosah. Sienna Moosah, another just adorable kid. Funny enough, there was 2 people who played Lavender Brown in the movies.
I think there was 3.
Was there?
I think
I know she was swapped.
swapped.
She was race swapped. And so she was originally cast by a black actress. I don't think we actually got a description in the book as to whether or not she was Caucasian or
Her race
she was
doesn't
black.
matter.
So I don't know why they ever swapped it. I don't know if the child's parents didn't want her acting anymore. I don't know what it was.
This goes back to we didn't have the ending of the books
Yeah.
when we were filming originally.
Yep.
So some of the characters that were cast early on, I just don't think the contracts were designed long term. And so we just likely had to
Recast, right.
recast.
This time they have her right up front. Hopefully we'll keep her right along. You know, they're really trying to do a good job of making sure these kids know what they're in for, and the parents especially know what the kids are in for, as far as I understand, because this is, like, predicted to be a 10-year series. Yes, it's 7 books, and yes, we're supposed to be getting a season per book, but that doesn't mean that the season will only span over 1 calendar year. And so the anticipated timeline for the series is 10 years. It'll be great to see how these kids grow up. It'll be great to see how they mature as actors and actresses. And I just hope that they're able to stick with the original castings for the whole thing.
I wonder if at this point with AI, if they take the pictures of the kids and then ask AI to generate a picture of them at each year so that that's maybe how they evaluate who is going to be best. I also wonder if they request pictures of the parents.
So there are medical modeling programs that you can use that can take things like photos of the parents and then photos of the child, and based on bone structures and things like that, it can sort of model them up as to, like, how they're most likely to age for bone development, body fat composition, those kind of things. But I don't know that they would bother with that, because, you know, an AI generated model, however it comes out, you could use that as, like, a sort of a predictor, but you don't
It's
have,
not a guarantee.
it's not a guarantee, and you don't have any control over, like, okay, so if she doesn't grow up that way, are we going to recast somebody?
I mean, like, yeah. I'm thinking if I were casting,
Yeah.
were I given all of this power, I'm looking at her. She's adorable. I'm just very curious about what she might look like in 10 years. And that's just probably more of a morbid curiosity than anything that's particularly relevant right now.
Very cute kid, though. I think she'll be fine from Lavender Brown. Honestly, I was never all that emotionally invested in Lavender Brown in the movies, but I think that's because she had literally no character development. She was just all of a sudden on screen as Ron's love interest.
And then she was dead.
And then, which also didn't get much screen attention, whereas in the books, there was kind of a bigger deal made of it.
Yep.
So I hope they do that correctly, too. Sorry, Sienna. When you die, I want it to matter, okay?
Okay.
So...
Spoiler alert.
This video...
You're gonna die.
Oh, my God. That's super morbid to say about a child. But,
yep, it is
your
literally
character,
morbid.
Your character will die. And I hope it gets the attention and the importance that it deserves. The justice that it deserves.
Doesn't Fenrir, what?
Fenrir Greyback?
Yeah. Isn't he like eating her?
Yeah, basically.
Ugh.
It's pretty narrow. Oh, and she also goes flying off a banister and like...
Slay.
Literally.
Okay, we're too tired for this.
Yeah, so I think she looks like a cute kid. She looks bubbly, and she's gonna have to be the one who goes.
Okay, that's for sure not written in the book. Is
I know, but
okay.
Actually, I have to go back and read that book. I hope it is. 'Cause I kind of want to see another person do it.
Oh my God,
it's so uncomfortable.
I was gonna say I wasn't emotionally invested in Lavender. I was emotionally divested from Lavender.
Yeah. It's just,
like.
She makes you feel, because everybody knows somebody like that.
Oh my God, yeah.
This like super overly attached, like just head over heels for no apparent reason. Desperate, yeah. And then they're just like uncomfortable to be around.
It's when she's sitting in the stands, like shaking when Ron's on the field, and they're not dating.
Yeah.
She's just like, why? You don't know him. He might be pretty to you.
But was he?
But was he?
No,
He's got nice skin.
He's a ginger, yeah.
Yeah. Overall.
With freckles, and although Rupert Grint didn't have freckles. But no, it's going to be...
Oh, yeah. It's fine.
It's going to be good. I think she's going to do a good job.
And with that...
That wraps us up for castings. We had teased another casting last time, and I have not heard... What?
Sorry. It's slay. Love that we teased that. I don't remember who we teased.
Ginny Weasley. Yep.
Yeah, we did. We did do that.
And I have not heard any further news, so that might have just kind of been a big red herring. But the casting announcement did come out for these guys around the same time that we thought they were supposed to come out. So I suspect that in another week, probably from now, today being the what?
Today is now the 14th.
Oh my God, because it's past midnight.
1 a.m.
About a week from now, we'll probably get another casting announcement. That seems to be the timeline that these things are rolling out on. So make sure you...
subscribe.
Yeah, hit the bell so that you don't miss another magical moment. Just make sure that you share in the comments, what are your thoughts about these casting announcements? Should we never do a video this late in the evening again? And would you have liked to have seen somebody cast that had a twin for Parvati Patel's part? Would you have liked to see somebody who was more height appropriate for Petunia? Did you know that Petunia and Lily were both named after flowers, unlike some other people?
Do you happen to know the length of Belle's neck?
Is it long enough?
Is it long enough? These are all of the questions that we have for you as, for sure, the experts. Joan, if you're out there, feel free to clue us in on what you're thinking, what you're up to.
Yeah.
Very curious.
You keep calling her Joan.
Yeah.
It's Joe.
Joe?
Yeah.
Isn't it Joanne Rowling?
It's Joanne. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Joan. So that's a different name. That's a different name entirely. J.K. Rowling, you can let us know what you're thinking and what your involvement in the castings has been. I'm excited for these roles. I think Jasmine's excited for these roles having been cast. Let us know what you think about them in the comments below. And until next time, keep your wands at the ready.
And stay magical.
Finite.
I would hate to miss another magical moment.
I would too, but I'd rather create a magical moment.
Ayo.
So.
Together.
Yep.
I finished. We're just going to cut it out.
This is devolving real quick.